The acrid smell of smoke mingles with something far worse in the dawn. Air, blood, decay, desperation. In the shadows of towering ancient trees, where sunlight struggles to penetrate the canopy, a female Homo habilis named Kira watches her world crumble. Her calloused hands grip a sharpened stone, knuckles white with terror. Behind her, the weak cries of starving children echo from their cave shelter. Before her, fresh scratches in the earth tell a story no mother should ever witness. The marks of her own kind, reduced to something unspeakable. The great drought has lasted 7 moons. The herds have vanished. The rivers run dry. And now, as Kira's hollow eyes scan the tree line, she knows the truth that will haunt her bloodline forever. Some hungers change you. Some hungers damn you. The survival of her people hangs by a thread, and that thread is about to snap. The pre-dawn darkness clings to the African savanna like a funeral shroud, broken only by the distant flicker of dying embers from the sacred fire. Kira crouches at the cave entrance, her weathered fingers tracing the crude paintings on the stone wall images of great beasts that once roamed these lands in abundance. Now, those same walls echo with the hollow breathing of 23 souls balanced on the knife-edge edge of extinction. "Mama," whispers her youngest, Zara, pressing against Kira's side. The child's ribs show through paper-thin skin, and her once bright eyes have dulled to the color of ash. "When will Papa come back?" Kira's throat constricts. Jorak left 3 days ago with the strongest hunters, following the ghost trails of the last mammoth herd. In better times, such a hunt would take a single day. But these are not better times. The drought has stretched into its 7th merciless moon. The great river that once thundered past their territory now whispers as a thin stream, barely deep enough to wet their tongues. The fruit trees stand naked, their branches reaching toward a pitiless sky like the bones of the dead. "Soon, little flame," Kira murmurs, though the words taste like lies. A shadow moves at the cave mouth. Elder Thane emerges from the depths, his ancient frame more skeleton than flesh. His eyes, once sharp as obsidian, now swim with a fever that has claimed 3 others this week. The children ask for food again, he rasps, settling beside the cold fire pit. His gnarled hands shake as he arranges the last precious twigs. "I told them stories instead. The old stories. About the time of plenty." Kira nods, understanding. Stories fill the belly better than air, but not by much. As the first pale light creeps across the horizon, painting the savanna in shades of bone and blood, a sound reaches them, the rhythmic slap of bare feet against hard earth. The hunters return. But as the figures emerge from the morning mist, Kira's heart turns to stone. Only 4 silhouettes approach, their shoulders bowed with defeat. Behind them, they drag nothing. No meat, no hope. "Where's Jorak?" The question tears from her throat before she can stop it. The lead hunter, Kamal, stumbles to his knees before reaching the cave. His face is a map of exhaustion and something worse. A haunted expression that speaks of witnessing horrors beyond words. "The herd," he gasps, his voice barely human. "The herd was ... gone. All gone. But we found something else." Thane struggles to his feet, ancient instincts screaming warnings. "What did you find?" Kamal's eyes dart between Kira and the elder, fear and shame warring in their depths. When he speaks, his words fall like tombstones into the morning air. Tracks. Human tracks. Leading to a clearing where ... double quotes. He swallows hard, bile rising, where the bones were cracked open. Marrow sucked clean. And the marks on the bones weren't from any beast. Silence grips the cave like a living thing. In the distance, a hyena laughs, the sound carrying on the wind like a promise of madness. Kira feels something cold and terrible unfurling in her chest. She knows, with the certainty that comes before lightning strikes, that their world has changed forever. The hunger that gnaws at their bellies is nothing compared to the hunger that has begun to feast on their souls. "Where is my husband?" she whispers. Kamal's eyes fill with tears that refuse to fall. "He went to investigate the clearing. We ... We couldn't stop him." As if summoned by their words, a figure appears on the ridge above their cave. Even at this distance, Kira recognizes Jurak's powerful frame, the distinctive scar across his left shoulder from a lion's claw. But something is wrong. He moves differently, slower, more deliberately, and in his hands... "No," Thane breathes, his voice cracking like breaking stone. Jurak begins his descent toward the cave, and with each step, the shape in his hands becomes clearer. A bundle wrapped in hide, a bundle that drips dark stains onto the thirsty earth. Fresh meat, but from what animal? Kira's maternal instincts war with a growing dread as she watches her husband approach. Behind her, the children begin to stir, drawn by some primal hope that food has finally arrived. "Mama," Zara whispers, her small hand tugging at Kira's arm. "Papa brought us something to eat." The words hang in the air like a curse, as Jurak's footsteps echo closer, and the thing he carries continues to drip its crimson promise onto the ground. Jurak stands at the threshold of their world, silhouetted against the harsh morning sun. His once proud stance has been replaced by something that makes Kira's skin crawl, a predatory stillness that belongs to the great cats, not to her gentle husband. The bundle in his arms is roughly the size of a young antelope, wrapped in familiar hide that Kira recognizes from their own stores. But the smell is wrong. Too sweet. Too familiar. "My family," Jurak speaks, his voice carrying across the distance between them like the whisper of wind through a graveyard. "Your hunger ends today." The children emerge from the cave's depths, drawn by the promise in his words. Little Dex, barely old enough to walk steadily, toddles toward his father with arms outstretched. The sight of the boy's joy cuts through Kira's chest like a flint blade. "Stay back," she commands, her voice sharp enough to stop the children mid-step. They look at her with confusion, their hollow eyes reflecting the betrayal they feel at being denied what might be salvation. Kamal and the other returned hunters exchange glances heavy with knowledge. They know. Whatever Jurak carries, they know its source, and their silence damns them all. "Kira," Jurak says, his tone carrying a note of hurt surprise. "Don't you trust your husband? Don't you trust the father of your children?" He begins unwrapping the bundle, his movements deliberate and ceremonial. The hide falls away layer by layer, like petals from a dying flower. With each fold removed, the metallic scent of fresh blood grows stronger. Thane steps forward, his weathered hand reaching for the walking stick carved from mammoth bone. "Jurak, my son, tell us, what animal provided this gift?" A smile spreads across Jurak's face, an expression Kira has never seen on her husband's features. It's too wide, too sharp. It doesn't reach his eyes, which have taken on the flat, emotionless quality of a snake preparing to strike. "Animal?" He laughs, the sound echoing off the cave walls like the cackle of hyenas. "Who speaks of animals when your children waste away to nothing?" The final layer of hide falls away. The silence that follows is absolute. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. What lies revealed in Jurak's arms is unmistakably a human leg, severed cleanly at hip and knee. The flesh is pale where it hasn't been darkened by dried blood, and the foot. The foot is small, child-sized. Kira's world tilts on its axis. The children behind her do not understand, not yet, but she sees the moment of recognition strike Thane like a physical blow. The elder staggers backward, his walking stick clattering to the ground. "Whose child?" The words tear from Kira's throat like fragments of her soul. Jurak's expression doesn't change. If anything, his smile becomes more serene, more terrifyingly peaceful. Does it matter? The hunger takes us all eventually. This way, some of us can live. Little Zara tugs at Kira's arm, her voice piping up with innocent curiosity. Mama, why does the meat look like Nala's leg? Remember when she fell and hurt herself? The name hits Kira like a boulder to the chest. Nala, the 7-year-old daughter of their neighbors, the family that lived 3 caves down the ridge. The family that hadn't been seen for 2 days. You didn't, Kira whispers. But even as the words leave her lips, she knows the truth. She sees it in the way Komal and the other hunters avoid her gaze. She sees it in the satisfied way Jorak cradles his gruesome offering. The family was already weak, Jorak explains, his tone conversational, as if discussing the weather. The parents died in their sleep. Natural causes. The children. They would have followed soon enough. I simply ensured their sacrifice wouldn't be wasted. The cave erupts into chaos. Some of the adults cry out in horror, while others, those most consumed by hunger, stare at the meat with a terrible longing. The children sense the tension without understanding its source, their frightened whimpers adding to the cacophony. You murdered them, Thane accuses, his voice shaking with rage and disbelief. You murdered children. I saved us, Jorak counters, his composure never wavering. Look at your grandchildren, old man. Look at their bones showing through their skin. Look at their hollow eyes. How long before they join the other children in death? How long before we all do? He holds the severed limb higher, like a priest making an offering to cruel gods. This is survival. This is what our ancestors would have done. What they did do in the dark times before plenty. Kira feels something breaking inside her chest. Not just her heart, but something deeper. Something fundamental to who she believed her husband to be. The man she loved, the father of her children, has become something else entirely. Something monstrous. Get out, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Jorak's smile falters for the first time. What did you say? Get out! The scream tears from her throat with such force that it sends the smaller children scurrying deeper into the cave. You are no longer welcome here. You are no longer my husband. Kira, Jorak's voice takes on a dangerous edge. You're not thinking clearly. The hunger has clouded your judgment. When you thought it through, I said get out. But Jorak doesn't move. Instead, he sets the severed limb down on a flat stone near the cave entrance, arranging it like a grotesque centerpiece. I'll leave the meat here. When your children start dying, really dying, not just wasting away, you'll come to understand. You'll see the wisdom in what I've done. He turns to address the entire gathering, his voice carrying the fervor of a prophet. The old ways are ending, the ways of plenty and waste, the ways of sentiment over survival. A new time is coming, a harder time, and those who embrace it will inherit what remains of this world. As he speaks, Kira notices movement in the shadows behind him. 2 figures emerge from the rocks, hunters from other tribes, their faces painted with symbols she doesn't recognize. Their eyes hold the same flat, predatory gleams her husband's. I won't be alone in this new world, Jorak continues. Others have seen the truth. Others have made the same choice. We formed an alliance, a brotherhood of the strong. The implication hits Kira like a fist to the stomach. This isn't an isolated madness. It's spreading. The hunger isn't just consuming their bodies. It's devouring their humanity, tribe by tribe, family by family. Choose quickly, Jorak warns, backing away toward his new companions. Join us willingly or be consumed by those who will. There is no third option. As the 3 figures disappear into the wasteland, leaving behind only the stench of death and the obscene offering on the stone, Kira realizes that the true horror hasn't even begun. The hunger that devours isn't just in their bellies anymore. It's in their souls. 3 days pass like a fever dream. The severed limb remains where Jorak left it, attracting flies that buzz in lazy circles around the putrefying flesh. None of them can bring themselves to move it, yet none can stop looking at it either. Kira watches her children waste away with each passing hour. Little Zara no longer asks for food. She simply lies curled against the cave wall, her breathing shallow and labored. Dex has stopped walking altogether, his tiny frame too weak to support even his meager weight. On the fourth morning, Elder Thane approaches her with hollow eyes that speak of impossible decisions. "Kira!" His voice rasps like wind through dead leaves. The others are talking. She doesn't need to ask what about. She's heard the whispers in the dark corners of the cave, seen the desperate glances toward the stone where Jorak's offering slowly decomposes, felt the growing tension as survival instinct wars with the last remnants of their humanity. "Who?" she asks, though she dreads the answer. "Kamal, for one. Says his infant son won't last another day without sustenance." Breen agrees. Her daughter is already speaking to the spirits. Thane settles beside her, his ancient bones creaking like breaking branches. "They're not wrong, child. We're all dying." Through the cave entrance, Kira watches storm clouds gather on the horizon. The sky has taken on a sickly yellow hue, pregnant with the promise of more suffering. Even if rain comes, it may be too late for most of them. There has to be another way, she whispers, but the words sound hollow even to her own ears. A commotion near the cave mouth draws their attention. Mira, a young mother from the deepest chamber, stumbles into the light carrying her baby. The infant is silent, a terrible, unnatural quiet that speaks louder than any cry. "She's gone," Myra sobs, clutching the small body to her chest. "My little son has joined the ancestors." The death hits the group like a physical blow. This is the seventh child to die since the drought began, but somehow this one feels like a threshold crossed. The boundary between the living and the dead has grown thin, and something dark is seeping through. Kamal rises from his place by the cold fire pit. His eyes are wild with grief and desperation as he stares at the dead infant in Myra's arms. "No more," he says, his voice cracking. "I won't watch my son follow. I won't watch any more children die when ... He gestures toward the stone outside, where Jorak's offering continues its slow decay. "Don't say it," Kira warns, but Kamal's gaze is already hardened with terrible resolve. "He was right," Kamal continues, his voice growing stronger. "Jorak was right. Our ancestors survived the lean times by making hard choices, sacred choices. The spirits understand necessity. Others begin to nod slowly at first, then with growing conviction. Hunger has a way of making the unthinkable seem reasonable. The forbidden seems sacred." Breen steps forward, her daughter Lila clinging weakly to her leg. The meat outside. It's been there 4 days. Soon it will be too rotten to provide any benefit. If we're going to ... She doesn't finish the sentence, but she doesn't need to. The implication hangs in the cave like smoke from a cursed fire. "You're talking about eating a child," Thane says, his voice heavy with the weight of his years. "A child who was murdered for this very purpose. We're talking about survival," Kamal snaps. "We're talking about ensuring our children live to see another sunrise." The debate continues, voices rising in desperation and falling in despair. But Kira barely hears them. Her attention has been caught by something else movement on the ridge above their cave. Figures are approaching. At first, she thinks it might be Jorak returning, but as they draw closer, she realizes these are strangers. A group of perhaps 8 individuals, moving with the confident stride of those who have recently fed well. "Visitors," she announces, cutting through the argument. The cave falls silent as all eyes turn toward the approaching party. As they near the cave entrance, details become clearer. These people look ... different, healthier than they should be in this time of famine. Their skin has color, their eyes are bright, and their movements are strong and purposeful. But there's something else, something wrong. It takes Kira a moment to identify what disturbs her about their appearance. Their teeth. When they smile, and they smile often, their teeth are stained. dark reddish-brown stains that no amount of chewing bark or root could create. The stains of dried blood that has been consumed regularly over time. The leader of the group, a woman with intricate scars covering her arms, raises her hand in greeting. "We bring word from Jorik," she calls out, her voice carrying clearly across the distance. "And an invitation." She gestures to her companions, who begin unpacking bundles from their backs. The scent that wafts toward the cave makes Kira's stomach clench with hunger, even as her mind recoils in horror. Fresh meat. Lots of it. But the cuts are too uniform, too familiar. They're not from any animal that walks on 4 legs. "My name is Vera," the woman continues, settling cross-legged near the cave entrance. "I speak for the new tribe, the tribe of those who have chosen survival over sentiment." Behind Kira, she hears sharp intakes of breath. She also hears, more disturbing still, the sound of several stomachs growling at the smell of the meat. "Your husband sent us to make you an offer," Vera continues, beginning to slice the meat with a flint knife. The sound of blade through flesh is obscenely loud in the morning air. "Join us willingly, and your children will never know hunger again. Refuse." She lets the threat hang unfinished as she holds up perfectly cooked strip of meat. The smell is intoxicating, even knowing its source. "We don't negotiate with murderers," Kira says, but her voice wavers as she watches little Zara lift her head at the scent of food. Vera's laugh is like breaking glass. "Murderers? Child, we are gardeners. We tend the human crop, harvesting only what is necessary to ensure the strong survive. The weak were always meant to feed the strong. We simply remembered what civilized folk have forgotten." She takes a bite of the meat, chewing slowly, savoring both the taste and the effect her actions have on her audience. Several of the cave dwellers lean forward unconsciously, their bodies betraying their minds. "The old ways are ending," Vera continues, echoing Jorik's earlier words. "The way of plenty is finished. But from its ashes, a stronger people will emerge. A people who understand that survival requires sacrifice." She stands, leaving the partially cooked meat on a rock within easy reach of the cave. "You have until the sun reaches its peak to decide. Join us and live. Refuse and become the sacrifice that ensures others do." As Vera and her companions withdraw to a nearby ridge to wait, Kira feels the weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. Around her, the members of her tribe stare at the offered meat with undisguised longing. The corruption is spreading faster than she imagined. Soon, there may be nowhere left to run, and no choice left but to become the monster or feed it. In the distance, thunder rumbles, but whether it promises salvation or doom remains to be seen. The sun climbs toward its merciless peak, while 24 souls balance on the knife-edge edge of damnation. The meat Vera left behind sends its seductive aroma wafting through the cave, a constant reminder of what survival might cost. Kira sits with Zara's head in her lap, feeling her daughter's pulse flutter like a dying bird's wings. The child's lips have taken on a blue tinge that speaks of organs beginning to shut down. Beside them, Dex lies motionless except for the barely perceptible rise and fall of his chest. "Mama," Zara whispers, her voice so faint Kira must lean close to hear. "I dreamed about the feast days, when there was honey bread and roasted mammoth. Do you remember the honey bread? The memory cuts deeper than any blade. Festival days when their tribe would gather to celebrate successful hunts, when children ran laughing through the camp with sweet treats smeared across their faces. When the future seemed as endless as the herds that stretched to the horizon. I remember, little flame," Kira murmurs, smoothing her daughter's matted hair. A shadow falls across them. Kamal stands at the mouth of their small chamber, his infant son cradled against his chest. The baby's breathing has become irregular, punctuated by tiny gasps that speak of approaching death. "My son is dying," Kamal says simply. "In hours, maybe less, he'll join the ancestors. Unless ... and finish the sentence. but his gaze drifts toward the cave entrance where Vera's offering waits. There has to be another way, Kira insists, though the words sound increasingly hollow. What way? The question comes from Breen, who emerges from the shadows with her daughter Lila. The girl, once vibrant and quick to laugh, now moves with the shuffling gait of the elderly. The rivers are dry. The herds are gone. The fruit trees are barren. What other way is there? More voices join the chorus of desperation. The ancestors survived lean times, ... Children have always fed the tribe when necessary, ... The spirits understand sacrifice, ... We're already dead. This just delays it, ... Elder. Thane struggles to his feet, his walking stick scraping against stone. Listen to yourselves, he croaks, but his voice lacks its former authority. You speak of children as if they were grain stores to be rationed. And what would you have us do instead? Kamal snaps, his grief making him cruel. Watch them die slowly when we could save them. Honor the dead over the living? The argument erupts again, but this time with a desperate edge that speaks of decisions already half made. Kira sees it in their eyes, the gradual erosion of the barrier between unthinkable and necessary. A commotion outside interrupts the debate. Through the cave entrance, they see Vera approaching again, but she's not alone. She's dragging someone behind her. As she reaches the cave mouth, the burden becomes clear. A child, perhaps 9 years old, bound and gagged but very much alive. His eyes are wide with terror above the hide strip covering his mouth. A gift, Vera announces cheerfully, as if presenting a bouquet of flowers rather than a captive child. Fresh meat for those with the wisdom to accept it. The child whimpers through his gag, the sound cutting through the cave like a dull blade through flesh. Several of the adults turn away, unable to meet his pleading gaze, but not all of them turn away. Where did you find him? Breen asks, and the hunger in her voice is unmistakable. He was alone, Vera explains, running her fingers through the boy's hair with mock tenderness. His family perished from the fever 2 days ago. He's been wandering the wastes, slowly starving. Really, we're offering him mercy as much as nourishment. The boy's muffled sobs echo off the cave walls, each sound a hammer blow against the last fragments of their humanity. Kira watches in horror as she sees the change beginning in the faces around her. The way eyes that once showed compassion now calculate the boy as weight against the hunger of their own children. The way hands that once offered comfort now clench with predatory intent. No, she says, rising to her feet despite her own weakness. I won't let this happen. You have no choice, Vera replies calmly. The sun has reached its peak. Time for your decision. Join us, or watch your children die while you cling to useless morality. She draws a flint blade from her belt, testing its edge with her thumb. A thin line of blood wells up, which she licks away with obvious relish. The boy dies regardless, she continues. The question is whether his death feeds your children or mine. Kamal steps forward, his infant son still clutched against his chest. The baby's breathing has become so shallow it's barely visible. Give me the knife, he says. The words hang in the cave like a curse. Kira sees the exact moment when the last barrier falls, when necessity becomes justification, becomes sacred duty. She sees it happen not just in Kamal, but in face after face around the cave. They're lost, all of them. The hunger has finally completed its work, transforming love into appetite, parents into predators. Kamal, no, Thane pleads, but his voice is already the voice of a ghost haunting the ruins of civilization. My son will live, Kamal declares, reaching for the knife. Whatever the cost, my son will live. But as his fingers close around the blade's handle, something unexpected happens. A shadow falls across the cave entrance, not the shadow of a person, but of something much larger. A deep rumble fills the air, followed by another and another. The ground beneath their feet begins to vibrate with a rhythm that every primitive human knows. Instinctively, Hoofbeats. Thousands upon thousands of hoofbeats, approaching fast. Through the cave mouth, they see impossible sight, a vast herd of buffalo thundering across the wasteland, their passage raising a dust cloud that darkens the sky. Behind them, driven by some primal panic, come mammoth and rhinoceros, antelope and wild horses, all fleeing in the same direction. The great herds have returned. Vera's confident expression crumbles as she stares at the approaching bounty. Her knife-wielding hand begins to shake as the reality hits her. There will be meat enough for all. The terrible calculus that has driven her people into cannibalism has suddenly become obsolete. "Impossible," she whispers, but the thunder of hooves drowns out her voice. The captive boy uses the distraction to tear free from his bonds, scrambling toward the cave, where Kira scoops him protectively into her arms. But as the herd passes and the dust begins to settle, Kira realizes that salvation may have come too late. The corruption has already taken root. The choice has already been made in too many hearts. The hunger that devours doesn't simply vanish when food returns. It evolves. The great herd's passage leaves the landscape transformed. Where dust and death once ruled, now hoofprints pressed deep into earth suddenly softened by the rain clouds that followed in the animal's wake. The air itself seems cleaner, charged with the electricity of renewed possibility. But not everyone welcomes this salvation. Vera stands at the cave entrance, her face twisted with rage as she watches the distant herds settle into grazing grounds that haven't seen such abundance in over a year. Behind her, her cannibalistic followers shift restlessly, their eyes still holding the flat, predatory gleam that has become their defining characteristic. "This changes nothing," she declares, though her voice carries an edge of desperate uncertainty. "The herds will move on. The drought will return. And when it does, you'll remember this moment when you chose starvation over strength." Elder Thane approaches the cave mouth, moving with more vigor than he's shown in months. The sight of the returning herds has kindled something in his ancient eyes, not just hope, but a fierce determination to reclaim what they've almost lost. "Leave," he commands, his voice carrying the authority of his years and his position. "Take your corruption and go. You are no longer welcome in the lands of our ancestors." Vera's laugh is like breaking glass. "Old man, you still don't understand. The transformation has already begun. Look around you. How many of your people were ready to take my knife? How many had already accepted the necessity of feeding on their own kind?" She's not wrong, and the truth of it settles over the cave like a shroud. Kira sees it in the way some of the adults avoid eye contact, in the shame that wars with remembered hunger in their expressions. The corruption hasn't been erased by the herd's return. It's simply been driven underground, waiting. Kamal still clutches his infant son, but his grip on the flint knife hasn't loosened. He stares at the distant buffalo with an expression that speaks of deeper hungers than mere physical need. "The herds could leave again," he mutters, voicing what others are thinking. "And when they do ... when they do, we'll adapt as our ancestors did." Thane interrupts firmly. "Through cooperation. Through sharing. Through maintaining our humanity regardless of the cost." But Vera shakes her head, her smile returning. "Your ancestors survived by being strong, by making the choices you're too weak to make. The blood is already in the water, old man. The taste is already on their tongues." She gestures to her followers, who begin gathering their gear. But before leaving, she addresses the cave one final time. "We'll be watching," she promises. "And when the hunger returns, and it will return, we'll be ready to welcome you into the new world. The world of the strong." As Vera's group disappears into the wasteland, a tense silence settles over the cave. The joy that should accompany their salvation is tainted by the knowledge of how close they came to damnation, and how close some of them still stand to that edge. Kira releases the rescued boy, who tells them his name is Taco, and turns to address her people. "The herds have returned," she announces, her voice stronger than it's been in weeks. "The time of testing is over. But even as she speaks, she notices the glances being exchanged. The way certain individuals cluster together, whispering among themselves. The corruption Vera spoke of is real, and it's still spreading through their community like poison in a wound. "We need to hunt," Kamal declares, finally setting his son down but keeping the knife in his grip. Before the herds move on, before other tribes claim all the best game. There's logic in his words, but something in his tone makes Kira's skin crawl. A eagerness that goes beyond simple hunger relief. An anticipation that speaks of darker appetites. "Yes," agrees Breen, her own voice carrying a similar undertone. "We should hunt, soon, before anything changes." The preparations begin immediately. The strongest adults gather weapons and discuss strategies, while the children, though still capable of movement, watch with renewed hope. But Kira notices something disturbing about the planning session. They're dividing into two groups. The first, led by Thane and including herself, focuses on traditional hunting methods. Tracking, coordinating, bringing down large game through teamwork and shared effort. The second, clustering around Kamal and Breen, discusses different,